Going to go ahead and break in and start the show just a little bit early. Good afternoon, everybody. Nate the Barbarian with you. Welcome back. This is the Hot Mic Podcast. I'm not alone. We got Phil Hemlich's back. Where'd you say he was? He was in El Salvador, back from El Salvador. What's up,
Yeah,
Phil?
I do want to say something to our viewers. I know that last week that uh, the keen wit, the insights that you're used to, the kind of intellectual banter was not quite what it's been. But I just want to reassure all of you that things are back to normal this week.
You know what? You're making jokes, but you're actually right. You're right.
Thank
100%.
you.
First and last
Wow,
time you can hear me say
Nathan,
it.
that's the first nice thing you've ever said about me. I'm touched.
I'm joking. I was completely joking.
Okay.
Kevin, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Till the quality of this podcast went down the tubes with your praise of Phil, I'm like, man, I don't know about this. It's breaking from the character of the show, man. We got to nip that in the bud.
Kamika says Phil got a tan. You been in the sun, tan? You been in the sun, Phil?
I have. I was in Maine and doing some water skiing. I am sure you're all yucking it up at the thought of that, but I did
I
water ski
am.
every day. Huh? If you guys, by the way, you'd like me to send some videos for, because we probably need to get into some athletic achievements, stuff like that on this show. I'll be happy to just send it to you for you to show the viewers and all that kind of thing. I don't
You
like to
know what?
brag.
Let's do that. Yeah, please send that to me via email. Yeah, I think that'd be a great promo. You on some jet skis or
No, not jet skis, just two skis.
just two skis?
Yeah.
That
Now
works.
my daughter, they're actually good. My daughter can wakeboard back and forth and jump the wake. My son can slalom, but I'm in kind of you might call the senior division of the water skiing program
I
where I
never would have
went.
guessed it. I never would have guessed it. Making
Yeah.
that up. What's up, Terry? It's good to see you, bro.
Good to see you guys. I didn't hear Nate take up for Phil. I heard Nate. Oh, I didn't hear Nate give Phil a compliment. I heard Nate agree with Phil because Phil was just full of himself in that monologue when he had whatever it was, and Nathan just agreed. I didn't hear him quite say.
The best I can hope for from Nathan or Kevin is what I'd call faint praise. Okay, that's about the best. I don't expect anything more.
You were missed though, Phil. You were missed.
Tell me something I don't know. Okay.
The modesty for me. Let's jump straight into it. Let's talk about something that has been trending nationally. I mean, this will be the second straight pod that we bring this up, and that is the fact that House Republicans blocked the release of the Epstein files. Now, to the Democrats' credit, they used some type of maneuver that you can use when you're in the minority to force the Republicans to have to go out in public and vote on whether to release it, and they voted to block it. What does that say about the Republican Party? What do you read from this? Okay, so they did this. What does this mean to you?
Well, there's a lot that precedes this particular vote. What is so well, I guess it's kind of funny, if not sad, but the same people that have been pushing the conspiracy theory for years. I'm talking about Cash Patel, Bongino, Bondi, Trump himself, Donald Trump Jr. They're all pushing this conspiracy theory. Oh, maybe Epstein was murdered and Biden's hiding. Biden won't release the files and this kind of stuff. Well, it turns out when now these guys are given prominent, undeserved positions in the Justice Department, FBI, oh, now nothing to see. Okay, nothing to see. He committed suicide. I mean, it kind of shows the unbelievable dishonesty of people who would spread dangerous conspiracy theories and then be shown to have nothing there, that it was just made up. But what I find interesting about this refusal to now, remember, I'm sure you've seen the clip where Pam Bondi says, oh, I've got it. I got the list. It's on my desk. I'm going through it. Yeah. Well, then there's no list. Okay. And then they won't release it. Now, I don't want to get conspiratorial myself, but I have a suspicion that there's something in there that they don't want to release. And it isn't anything to do with Joe Biden. That's the only conclusion I can draw.
Yeah. They actually kind of painted themselves into a bad corner for all of the reasons that you articulated there, Phil. I mean, look, here's the thing. Should they release everything that's in the Epstein files? I don't believe so. And the reason why I don't think that they should release everything that's in the Epstein files is like with any investigation, there are names of people in there who might just be tangentially associated with Epstein, who, if their names were to get out, they would be pretty much reputation killers, because all people are going to remember is your name was a part of something that was associated with Epstein, whether you did anything or not. So there's a certain measure of privacy and protection that people deserve. Now, folks who were found guilty of things, absolutely release that information, release those names. If you've got anything that's connected to people who enabled him or who were a part of his criminal enterprise. But I am not necessarily one who thinks it's a good idea to just release anything that has no prosecutorial value to it. Like, if you aren't going to charge somebody or people aren't going to be arrested, the rest of it is just gossip and rumor that will be incredibly damaging to people's reputation, who might not have done anything. So I'm all for, if there are people to be charged and information in there that's related to his sex trafficking or any kind of illegal activity, sure, release that. The public has a right to know. But I also think people who didn't do anything wrong, who just happen to be named, have a right to privacy and shouldn't have that information released.
I'm going to piggyback off what Kevin and Phil both said. Kevin is correct in my opinion. Is there's a lot of people's names on that list that would ruin them no matter what, if they're prosecutable or not, like Kevin said. But I don't agree with them not releasing it because, like Phil said, Pam Bonnie said, I've got the stuff on my desk. I'm reviewing it. And then I've heard her walk it back down and say, yeah, I said I had it and I was reviewing it on my desk. And after I reviewed it, I found out there's nothing to see. They're doing a great job. The House Republicans and the Republicans are doing a great job of sweeping this under the rug. I don't know why. I think it's because they have some names on there that would completely ruin somebody, but I don't think that they should get people all roused up, especially in the MAGA world, get people riled up with the conspiracy theory and then completely switch, because that just shows how vulnerable that base is, and it shows how low-hanging fruit that base is. And if they go for it and they just say, okay, nothing to see here, it shows that someone else is even more in control. We don't know who it is. I have my theories. I always joke around and say Dana White, just joking around and say Dana White. But we all know that there's somebody above the president that is controlling. I don't know if it's that pack, that certain pack. It could be, but I don't know who's pulling these strings. But if it's they're powerful enough to make Donald Trump change his tone completely and say,
Wow.
stop the talk of it.
I don't think anybody pulled his string. I think Donald Trump was told what was in there.
That's what I just said.
Then he suddenly lost interest in having him released.
I don't believe that I think he knew what he was in there. And then now that they're saying, now that they could put everybody's names out there, Donald Trump's like, wait a minute, this could be detrimental to the United States of America and everybody else who's involved in there. And like Kevin said, this is not prosecutable with the education level
detrimental to him. That's all he
with the education level of most people in MAGA, it's acceptable for them to sweep this under the rug. Like January 6th, like everything else. This is nothing different than that situation.
Yeah.
I think that
horrifying.
I agree, especially whenever they campaigned on, we're going to release this. I just want to know who's this powerful that can make them change their tune. Cash Patel, the director of
I've got an idea. Mm-hmm. I've got an idea. I mean, I may just be spitballing here, but I'm thinking the president.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's a good. I think that's a good suspect.
Yeah, the guy who 3 or 4 months ago they asked a question about who's in charge. He's like, I'm in complete control of everything. They all do what I tell them to do. I mean, he said that since he's been elected. So clearly, just go straight to the top, and the top is Donald Trump. What I think is amazing is that how, people can't connect these dots, and they're all out there. So let me just say a couple of facts. So it's a fact that Jeffrey Epstein was arrested while Donald Trump was in office. It's a fact that he committed suicide while he was
And he
in
called
office.
Trump his best friend, by the way.
That is a fact that they were
Previously.
friends for 15 years, and it's been said from credible sources that they refer to each other as best friends. That's a fact. It's a fact that Donald Trump was cool with Ghislaine, whatever her name is, who was Jeffrey Maxwell, who was Jeffrey Epstein's right-hand man. It's clear he had a relationship with her. I mean, it's clear that the guy who became the labor secretary under the first Trump administration was the prosecutor that came up with the sweetheart deal that allowed Jeffrey Epstein and a whole lot of people to just skirt. I mean, these are all facts. It is a fact that Mar-a-Lago was used as a ground where Ghislaine was grabbing girls and taking over to Epstein Island. So with all these associations, and a man who has been found at least civilly responsible for something tantamount to rape, not rape, but close to it. Why are we surprised at all that he did a bait and switch? What we've seen is Donald Trump, and this is politicians. People say all politicians do this, but Donald Trump has taken it to another level. He and the Republicans will say and do and posture on anything as long as they get elected. And then when they get elected, they do what they really want to do. And this is what we've seen over and over and over and over and over again. So I'm not surprised at all that the Republicans did this, because they knew that Donald Trump would be at their necks. And they want to stay in power. And I'm not surprised that Donald Trump's administration is covering us up because of all of those previously mentioned associations. So I don't know what the truth is. All I know what the facts are, and those are the facts, as I understand.
Here's the only thing that I keep wrestling with about this whole thing. Like, if you're Donald Trump, and again, if we want to make this about him, right? If he's not releasing this because there's something in there about him, the one thing that doesn't make sense to me on that is if you're Donald Trump and you know you've done dirt with Epstein, then you would know from the jump that there's potentially stuff that would be in an investigation that might be damaging to you. So then why would you have your people like Pam Bondi or anybody else, unless they're trying to submarine Donald Trump from behind the scenes, which could be possible? Why would they get out and release this knowing that there would be information? I mean, look, Donald Trump controls Donald Trump controls the DOJ. He's not hands off, pretending like he's hands off like other presidents did. He's letting you know that the FBI and all of these intelligence agencies are under his thumb. So why would then these same agencies come out and trumpet releasing information that would have damaging information on the president? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, but Kevin, what information are you talking about that's been released?
No, I'm saying why would his attorney general or whomever get on TV and talk about releasing this list or making the files available if it had damaging information about Trump?
Because it was right after the election, and because that was something that they really, really ran on. It was something that MAGA was really, really serious about. And so they fed them a little bit more red meat, but they haven't released anything.
No, but I'm saying that the reason why they're in a pickle now is because Bondi came out and said, I've got this client list. Now they're saying there is no client list. I'm saying if that was true, why would she say that if there was dirt in the files on Donald Trump? It makes no sense to advertise a client list.
It makes perfect sense.
And then back off of it.
It makes perfect sense to dangle something in front of people when you know you have full control over what they actually see. So this is typical Donald Trump. He plays in
but it's backfiring on him. Because now you've got your base all riled up. And I will say this is one of those things that the MAGA crowd don't play around with. You know,
they're gonna go for it. They're gonna lay down and go for it.
They're going for it.
They're gonna lay down and go for it.
I don't know.
They're putting up a little bit of resistance right now, and people are upset because it was such a fundamental part of what they said they was going to do. That's the reason why they did that Pine Bondi movement, because MAGA was giving them pressure. Like, look, you said that you were going to release this as soon as you got elected. Trump said it many, many, many times and talked about it. But now you've been elected. So they were under some kind of pressure to put on a show. That's why they did it. Everything Donald Trump does is a show for the base. So they put on a show. He had his attorney general go out there and dangle. I got the list right here. But you never saw it, did you? That's why he did it. And what we've seen is Donald Trump, and there's a lot of people who have a whole lot more insight and been closer to him than I am. In fact, when I say this, I'm getting it from other people who have spent extensive time with him. But Donald Trump's is just one moment to the next. So he did that in the moment, not thinking about the next moment. And we see this over and over and over again. It's a consistent pattern. He does one thing, arches his back and acts tough. Oop, went wrong. And then you pivot to the next thing. And it's just one thing after another. And, people are picking up on these patterns and talking about it online. It's very, very clear. So he thought that he could come out. And he said it now. Trump thinks that I can come out, and he's right. And I can tell them what to think and do. And he put out a statement on True Social saying, basically, get over it. There's nothing here. And at the end of the day, that's what MAGA's going to do. They're going to get over it.
Isn't the case closed? If I'm not mistaken, from the last I've done research on this, they say the case is closed. They say it's closed. See? No more to see here. They say the case is over. Move on. That's what I'm not MAGA. That's what I've seen, and I don't agree with it. I do not agree with it. I believe that if they ran on this Epstein stuff, but they have, in full honesty, Pam Bondi said, "I've got the stuff on my desk and I'm reviewing it." She reviewed it. Nothing to see.
So what does that tell you about the Trump administration?
They're no different than the Biden administration.
Oh,
they're all live. They're okay.
What does that tell you about the Trump administration?
The Trump administration is sticking to an agenda, and they will put out the shiny ball, just like you just said. Look at the shiny ball. Look at the shiny ball. And then whenever you look at the shiny ball, and they're over here doing this, then they pivot. As soon as the shiny ball, the light dims out on the shiny ball, they move to the next one. So what'll be the next thing? First it was Elon Musk. Now
so we're talking about a child predator, like the most infamous child predator of our generation. That's what we're talking about. We ain't just talking about no normal guy. We're talking about Jeffrey Epstein and all the crazy stuff that we might think and may have no evidence for, but we just think went on there. We know some bad stuff happened. And you just saw the Trump administration and Republicans, the party you voted for, your party, basically block releasing it to the public. And the only thing you get from that is this tells you they're just like Biden. Yeah, that's a different level right there.
It's no different than what Biden did.
Oh, it's a real difference. It's a real difference.
But I don't agree. I don't agree with it. I'm not saying I agree with it at all.
You do agree with it.
I do not agree with it.
You do agree with it.
It's politics. It's what they do in politics. That's exactly what they do in politics.
I know, but if this was the Biden administration, you'd be ascribing and projecting all kind of moral implications and what it says about them, and they're anti-family. They're predators of kids. If it was a Democrat that did this, if Biden did the exact same thing, you would be at the end of your wits about how this shows how evil they are. But when it's Trump, it's just his politics. And that's what I'm trying to say, Kevin. That's what MAGA is going to do with it. If they're going to take it, I don't agree with it, and they're going to get right back on board because their identity is so closely connected to Trump and MAGA that they can't give that up over anything. MAGA would sacrifice, and they are quite literally sacrifice in a legislative policy way. MAGA just signed off to, in a policy way, sacrifice their children to Donald Trump.
Yeah, here's what I would say about that. They may not divorce themselves completely from Donald Trump, right? Because we know shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and not lose any support. But I don't think people are going to let go of this, regardless of what Donald Trump says about getting over it, because the reason why is the Epstein case falls into one of those categories of conspiracy, like the grassy knoll and all of these other UFOs and all of this other stuff. And the fact that they're saying there's no client list when they said that there was, the real conspiracy folks, when they get a hold of that kind of stuff, it doesn't go away. You'll be talking about Jeffrey Epstein 20 years from now, and there'll be some Netflix, if Netflix is still around in 20 years or whatever the equivalent of that is, there'll be some Jeffrey Epstein documentary. It's like O.J. Simpson. There are just certain stories that never go away, no matter what you say, because of the appetite of people to not be able to handle unresolved issues or getting the answers that they want. So Donald Trump can say, move on, but people aren't going to move on. This is one of those things that's going to be around for a while. I also think what is also very likely in this situation that we can't overlook is that Epstein was connected in all different areas, politics, entertainment, you name it. And so there are probably a lot of people in Washington who might be in those files, who have good reason to not want to vote to have those files open, or their friends or donors or people who give big money. And I think that's on both sides. I think Democrats and Republicans got some folks who are sweating over what's in that file and whether or not it's going to get released. Democrats right now see a opportunity because they think, it's an opportunity to muddy Trump. But I guarantee you there's some Democrats on the other side of the aisle or liberal supporters who are nervous about, information potentially getting out. So there are a lot of people who are connected with Epstein, who are powerful people who have a lot of pull, who are probably in Trump's ear and a lot of other people's ear on the Hill about making sure that those files stay buried.
Yeah.
And if you guys want to keep it, going, is the people who want to keep it going are the people that have, and from my circle over here, and they're like, yeah, the people that are going to keep this going are the people with Trump deranged syndrome, people with TDS. They're going to be anything they can hang on to with Donald Trump. They're going to hang on to it while the shiny ball, or what Donald Trump wants you to focus on, has moved.
Yeah. Oh, see, I told you they're already processing it, and you got influencers like what's the guy from Turning Point USA? What's the founder's name?
Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk already put out a video. Now, last year before the election, it was Epstein files, Epstein's files. Well, he must have got the word from the White House. He goes to his podcast audience and tells them, like, look, I'm going to trust my friends in government. I'm going to trust my friends in the White House. It's already over with. There is nothing that Donald Trump could do. And I do mean that literally. He could crack this planet literally in half. And MAGA will blame Biden. And I mean that literally. I'm not trying to make a joke about it. They literally will follow whatever cue he says. And that's just what it is. There's nothing to talk about. One way I do disagree with you, Kevin, is I think they should release the files, period. And I think they should redact the name of victims. But if you're somebody that was fraternizing around him, but you didn't do anything wrong, I understand that. I think your identity should be protected to some degree, but I think this case is taken on a level where it demands as much full public release as possible. And
or maybe you were around, maybe you knew what was going on and refused to speak up and do something about it.
Right.
So I agree with you. I have no problem.
But how do you know that? How do you know that, right? Like that's what I'm saying. Like the extent of the investigation, and this is what I said, simply knowing Jeffrey Epstein, simply being at it's like the whole Diddy freak off party thing. Like, you might have been there, but maybe you didn't do anything. And do you want to be guilty by? Do you want to be?
But if you were at a Diddy party, wouldn't you know what was going on?
Huh?
You don't know what's going on.
No, I'm saying what I'm saying is, Phil, is how do you determine that somebody knew? I'm all for, like, if you can prove through evidence that people were enabling or were supporting him in that, release that information. That's what I'm saying. But people who had nothing to do with it, who were just associated with him, have every right to privacy. Just like if it was you, you don't want you would not want your reputation damaged just because you knew somebody or happen to be hanging around somebody.
Yeah, what if somebody hangs out at a Nazi party event or a Ku Klux Klan thing?
That's different. Yeah, but
I'm not.
But that's different. That's different, Phil. Come on, you're not gonna be hanging out. No, average people don't hang out, unknowingly at a Klan rally. That's a pretty definitive thing where you know where the hell you're at when you're there. Right. It's possible to be around somebody and not have a clue of what they're doing behind closed doors or in the dark. Look, I guarantee you, if you were to pull the cover back on some of your associates, you got some people in your circle that's doing some stuff. You don't know what they're doing.
Mine?
And if it got out and they said, oh, well, that was Nathan's boy, or I used to see Nathan hanging out with him all the time, and that rubbing off on you, you would not appreciate that. So what I'm saying is if you can prove, right, if there's tangible evidence that you were involved and associated, fine, name those people. But I think if you don't have that, then like I'm fine. I'm cool with what Nathan said. Redact the names, right? Redact the names of the victim, redact the names of the people that you don't have any evidence on. But I think it's ridiculous to suggest that you like that's the gossip part of this, right? That I am not in favor of. I think a lot of people just want to know for that reason to say, you know, who famous can we find that's attached to this guy, even if they didn't do anything wrong? Because people don't remember that you didn't do anything. And take this from a guy from 30 years in the media. People don't remember that you didn't do anything. They remember you was named in the article, and that's the truth. And you have to deal with that for the remainder of your life. And I just don't think that's fair. I'm all for the public right to know. Lord knows I work in that industry, but I'm also about being fair to people and not ruining people's reputation unwarranted. Even in journalism, we have a responsibility to do no harm, and you have to compare that with the public's right to know. And I don't think there's any difference in the case with these Epstein files. So if you got something on somebody, release it. If you don't, people have a right to privacy.
Yeah, I'm not even sure. I hear you, bro, and I hear people saying that. I think that is the type of response and conversation that these people behind Jeffrey Epstein or Epstein's Island want us to have, right? That's the way they want us to look at it. Like, hey, guilt by association, because then we personalize it, and nobody wants to be judged like that. But I'm not really sure if that's consistent to what we're really talking about. Like, you know, Jeffrey Epstein had an island where he was taking these underage people, and they was having these little freaky parties down there and doing some just evil stuff. And so if it comes out in the Epstein files that you went to Epstein Island at about the same time, because they got government documents and court documents at about the same time that alleged victims say they were there, then that's on you, buddy. That's on you. And
I disagree with that. I disagree with that from this standpoint. Let's just say you get invited, right? And I'm just putting hypotheticals out there. Again, don't mistake what I'm saying about
Kevin. You're not just that Kevin. You're not.
No. Let me finish my point. Don't mistake what I'm saying about people who had knowledge and actually did stuff versus people who had no knowledge and might have just been caught up. So imagine
you just caught up.
Imagine you get invited. Imagine you kind of know Jeffrey Epstein tangentially, and dude is like, "Hey man, I'm having a party out at my spot. Why don't you just come on through?" I'm like, "Okay, cool." I go out there. I see what's going on. I see all these young girls going on, walking around out there, and I'm like, "Oh,
I'm out." See, stop right there. Stop right there, Kevin. Stop right there, Kevin. Stop right there. I'm out. So if you invite me to your private island, and I get off and I see something wrong, I'm out right there.
Well, no, I'm not taking
another step.
If you see young girls there,
Phil, if you invite me to a private party and I step off into the beach and I see something strange, it's over right then. I ain't taking another step. I'm not going to the bungalow. Get me out of here, or I'm gonna tear this thing up. That's what I would do.
Take it a step further. If you see clearly underage girls fraternizing in a way that indicates they're kind of physically involved with older people, you have a greater duty. You got to go to the police. That's a crime. It's a crime. And it's statutory rape. And so I would even go farther and say you not only need to get out of there, but you need to report it.
Yeah. So
I hear you on that, but everybody ain't doing that because
those people deserve to have their name come out.
We see instances all the time. We see instances all the time where people see wrongdoing and they don't go to the police. It happens every day.
And what do the police do? They ask everybody. Everybody's a part of the court case and their investigation. They have no problem putting people's names out there. Sometimes in this world, you just get caught up in stuff that has nothing to do with you. That's the risk you take when you walk out there. And you might come up in an investigation that has nothing to do with you. And it happens. Especially if you go into Epstein Island and you see little young girls dancing around. Whatever comes after that, whether you were involved with stuff that went further, whatever comes after that, oh, well, you should have jumped. You should have did what I just said. Stay on the beach and demand that they get a plane over here and pick me up right now. Right? I'm not
When
going in
I
there to party with you. I don't want to see nothing. I don't want to know nothing. I wasn't here. Get me off this island right now.
when
And
I
if
was on
you're not
city
willing to do
council,
that, then you get caught up with whatever comes after that. You get caught up with. This happens to black people
I think
all
it's
the
all
time.
good and it's easy to say when it's not your reputation. And trust me, I like I said, I've been doing this for so long that I've seen when people have been named in cases where they didn't even do anything wrong.
Right.
The public's reaction is not that you were there and you told the police and you testified. It's like, oh, he was there. You know, Nathan did a little something while he was there. And all it takes is for a few people to get that going. And that becomes your reputation because some people are going to believe a lie quicker than they will the truth, no matter what.
And you know, in that situation, who you should be mad at, if that happens to that person, you know, you should be mad at not the press, your buddy that was doing the evil stuff, and he didn't tell you about it.
But that
That's
don't do.
who
You
should
can
be mad at.
You can be mad at him, but being mad don't get your reputation back.
Yeah, but
Being
your
mad don't get your reputation.
your reputation was forfeited by your buddy, not the fact that your name came out. That's just
People don't care about that,
consequences.
though, Nathan. That's what I'm saying. Public perception. I'm not disagreeing with what you say, but public perception don't care about that. What they care about is the gossip and the rumor and getting on podcasts like this or other podcasts and talking about the dirt. And it was bad 20 years ago. It's exceptionally bad today. I mean, I just saw something today where they got something on where they talk about Stevie Wonder wasn't actually blind. Bruh, this is the age that we live in.
If he wasn't, he was a heck of an actor. I'll tell you that much.
The last thing I'll say is the problem with what you're saying, Kevin, is that we're not talking about dirt. We're talking about crimes against children. We ain't talking about gossiping.
Again, what we're talking about are people who deserve to be outed and people who don't. That's where I've been.
And if you were on this whole thing, you deserve.
That's where I've been on this whole thing. For the people who deserve to be outed, who did something wrong, put their name out there. People who have a right to have their privacy protected. I mean, I'm not going to move off that. That's going to be my point, is that there should be an obligation to protect people's privacy who didn't.
You don't get no. It's just like driving in the car with your buddy and he's doing something wrong. You get pulled over, the cop might say something to you too. You weren't driving. You told him to stop. It's your buddy. It's not the fact that your cop stopped you. That's secondary. Same thing. If Jeffrey Epstein invited somebody to that island and then that person wasn't involved with the evil stuff and he was maybe in the lounge or whatever playing video games, if the heat comes down on them, it's only one person you should be mad at, and that's Jeffrey Epstein, because he should have told you so you had a choice as to whether you really wanted to deal with the consequences or not. That's your buddy's fault. There's a larger public interest, in my opinion. It's a larger public interest that I think supersedes their right to privacy. This is just me. I think it supersedes their right to privacy in this particular case, just because of the magnitude. But we all know that ain't happening. So it is what.
Can I add something? Absolutely. When I was on city council, when I was doing like a speech, nobody likes. At least when I was there, nobody likes city council. And, so I would have this line. I'd go, well, you're judged by the company you keep. I'm on city council kind of thing. But that expression, you're judged by the company you keep, I think has some truth, biblically and otherwise. I mean, okay, I'm sure there are situations where somebody was hanging around with Epstein and perfectly innocent, this and that. But, keep in mind that this guy, even though he got off scot with nothing, this guy was a convicted, whatever they charged him with. Anybody who hung out with that guy, at least after that point, knew who they were dealing with.
You kind of know, like parents can tell, like people can tell, people can read energy. The older you get, you can read energy. What I realize now is that when my buddies and people will come to the house, maybe even girls, my parents and grandparents was reading them in 2 or 3 seconds as soon as they open their mouth. So you can read energy. So, this idea that this man could be the mastermind behind so much evil and pain and exploitation and it not somehow ooze out of him. The more I think about people like Dexter, which of course is a fictional character, but there are people like that are charming as I don't know what. And beneath the surface, they got all kind of stuff going on. So yeah, I back away from that. Yeah. Maybe he was just a charming guy and You know, he was able to hide that part of him. I mean, it's totally possible. Yeah, I give you that. Totally possible.
I mean, I
Anything else?
think everybody. I don't. Again, I don't disagree with what you said. I mean, I think it's probably pretty hard to believe that most people, particularly if you ran in circles with him, that you wouldn't have known what he was up to. And there are probably a lot of people who did. And again, those are not the folks again that I'm arguing for, right? I think that so that's the important delineation that I'm saying here. People who knew, people who enabled, out them, put their names out there, et cetera, et cetera. Those who are only tangentially related have a right to privacy. That's the point. If you can't see that distinction, if you can't see that distinction, then I don't know what to say about that.
I can't see the distinction. Like who? Give me an example. Like these people were taken to so-called Epstein Island. They was partying, all kind of crazy stuff was happening.
But you don't know that only that. But this is what I'm saying. You're assuming that everybody in the investigative files went to Epstein Island. What I'm saying is they may have interviewed a whole bunch of people who knew Jeffrey Epstein, who were attached to him, who never set foot on Epstein Island, right? But they're part of the investigation because
I think that would be clearly delineated in any information that came out, don't you? Like if they put out information and somebody is, you know, under that definition that you just explained, I think that would be clearly explained in any documentation that came out. The evil stuff that I can remember reading about was happening on Epstein Island. And so let's say hypothetically you were a maid and you were working there. Should their name come out?
Well, I mean, people don't care about the maid though. This is what I'm trying to explain to you. Like I'm not talking about some maid or somebody. I'm talking about like people who have a professional reputation that could be ruined by just simply having like people are looking for the big names, the notable names, the entertainers, the politicians, the business owners, those are ain't nobody checking for the maid. That ain't what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who are in that category who have a reputation that could be damaged by that.
That seems elitist. It seems like what you're saying is these people are rich and famous, and we don't want to injure them because they're around. No.
I'm saying we don't want to injure anybody. But what I'm saying is the way that the media works and the way that people talk. That's what people are looking for. That's what they're checking for. So I would say the same thing about the maid. The only thing I'm saying about the maid is ain't nobody checking for the maid. That's what I'm saying. Not that the maid shouldn't enjoy the same right to privacy as the CEO. I'm just saying the public ain't checking for the maid. They want to know the big names that are there. And so if I am a big name that had nothing to do with it, this is what I'm saying. People don't remember that you didn't do anything.
I agree with you. I just don't.
That your name was in the investigation.
I agree with that, but so what? You was at Epstein Island. So what? Your name is in the investigation because you were dancing around upstairs while underage children were being abused downstairs. So what?
Well, ask anybody, Nathan, ask anybody who was ever falsely accused or had their name associated with something that wasn't true, and they're still battling that. I know you gotta know some people. I know you gotta know some people who have gone
that rich people logic. That's that rich people logic. That's that rich people logic. This is rich.
I ain't even talking about rich people.
Yes, it is because for everybody else. Yes, it is because for everybody else. If
it could be a school teacher. It could be a school teacher, Nathan. It could be a school teacher.
You just said it couldn't be the maid.
You just said it couldn't be the maid. It could be a school teacher that's accused of doing something inappropriate with a student, and then it turns out.
The only reason why I'm saying this is because when I brought up maid, you said I ain't talking about the maids, but now you're back to school teachers. No, this is very
Nathan, you're not listening to what I'm saying. You're trying to cherry pick. Okay. Listen clearly. Listen clearly, so you cannot. I said. The maid has the same right to privacy as the CEO or the entertainer. I would argue that equally. What I'm saying is the public, not Kevin Aldridge, the public ain't checking for the maid. They don't care about the maid.
Why is that relevant to what we're talking about? How is that relevant? I think you're on a tangent, bro.
No,
Listen.
I'm not on a tangent. I'm making perfect sense with what I'm
Okay.
saying. You keep
I'm
trying
just
to.
not getting
You could hold it. You could say he's on an island, but that
He's
might
on
be
an
a
island.
to
You're
this
on an island.
conversation.
That's a good one. You're on an island, bro. It's me. It's not you. It's me. It's definitely me. It's my
It
brain.
is definitely you.
I know I'm getting older, but for me,
You're doing
like I
your
said, this is.
barbarian thing.
I'm
Oh,
starting
I
to
know what I was
get
going to say. This is a
barbarian
poor.
mode.
See, for poor people in the world that I live in, when the police knock in the door, let's say it's some illegal stuff happening downstairs. When the police knock in the door, if it's some people upstairs that's had nothing to do with it, you going too. You're going too. And they're going to run you through the system. Your name might end up in the paper. But when it's rich people, they're not responsible because they didn't know what was happening in the cellar. I get it. It's some of that elitism. I get it.
It's not elitism. I would argue the same right to privacy, whether you got $1 or whether you got $1 million. It's about a right to privacy, not class. That's the argument that you're making. That's not the
I think
argument.
the public interest supersedes so-called rights of privacy in some instances.
I disagree with that. I disagree with that.
It is well documented and timeline. You can Google and try to find the court documents. There's all kind of documentaries about it. These young women can tell you where they were, the time they were there, and in some cases, people that were in the room. All I'm saying is that if that matches up on the calendar with people who were at the party, then so be it. Then you just got caught up in something that, the man that invited you to his home, he set you up. And that's his fault. And that's your fault. And that happens sometimes. But the rules are different for the rich and famous. That's what we're finding out with this. It's just like we always know. When a poor man do something, you pay for it. When a rich man do something, you pay for it. And that's just what it is. And that's just the world we live in. And we just got to deal with it. I get it. I understand. I'm dealing with it.
I realize that the rules are not the same for everybody. I argue for the fact that we should have the same standard regardless.
If you're involved with some evil stuff,
that people have a right,
out.
That people have a right to privacy when they haven't done anything wrong.
They do. Unless you are at ground zero of some very evil stuff happening, then you might get caught up in an investigation and your name might come out in some public files. That's the reality for every American. All of us. You could be walking down the street right now and walk right into a situation you had nothing to do with, and your name might come up in an investigation. In fact, you might be investigated.
I know for a fact because we deal with this in a lot of public records requests. There are a lot of names that get redacted from police reports for that very reason. The same reason why they take down your address and your personal information. And when we ask for it in the press and they give us the documents, they black it out. Why do they do it? Because you have a right to privacy. Even if your name is in the police report, even if you are a part of the investigation, they black it out so that we can't get the names and put it in the paper.
Right.
That is right to privacy. And Phil Hemlich, I'm right as an attorney. I just love the way Phil Hemlich, the attorney, is sitting back there.
What are you jumping on me for?
He don't know better. Phil, you were a public, what were you, a county commissioner, a city councilman, a prosecutor? You've been in all these public roles, and you just sitting back there eating this nonsense like what I'm saying ain't fact.
Yeah. Well, you don't have a right to privacy in public. That's number one.
First of all, I was a county prosecutor, and then I was on city council and I was a county commissioner, just to get my bio straight. Yeah.
But you're not going to answer the fact that you're sitting there and letting what Kevin's saying.
What do you mean I'm letting it? What do you want me to say?
Okay, because I agree with Kevin. I agree with Kevin.
As a county prosecutor, when you were doing your investigations and you had to release information to the media, you never redacted privacy information.
Well, of course he has.
No, of course you redact, but I don't think Nathan's.
That's not even the point.
I think we're all agreeing that you redact names when the police issue a report or something like that. But
why is that different than the Epstein files?
Given whatever has to be blacked out, okay. But other than that, I think all those files should be released.
Okay, so that's you just validated everything that I've been saying for the last 45 minutes, and that's all I've been asking for.
I didn't mean to.
You sat back there like the cat who swallowed the canary and just let that go on for 45 minutes when you could have just said, Kevin is right, let's move on to the next topic.
Oh, but you're not right though. You're dead wrong. They should release it. I don't think. I think the only thing that should be redacted is people who are like, and are the victims.
Innocent
Oh,
bystanders or victims.
that's it.
Who's to
If
say
you
who's an innocent bystander? Who's
if
to
you
say
if you were on the guest list, then people can make whatever assumptions they want to make. You know, that's just the way it goes. And I just think like the evil was that great, and the public interest is that high that that's what they should do. They're not going to do it, but let's move on here. I want to talk about Bath and Body Works. I'm not sure if people have really picked up on this, but this is just a part of the world we live in now. But out in Utah, they have a Bath and Body Works. Anybody go to Bath and Body Works still?
I
Absolutely.
didn't
They got stuff
even
for
know they
men.
still had stores open. I thought
Oh, you didn't know it was open? Yeah, they got some
they
good.
went out of business. You know, so many of them types of places go out of business. I wasn't sure they still had Bath and Body Works.
They still have Bath and Body Works, and
Kevin,
they got
I
some
thought
stuff-
you did all your shopping there for all your personal items. That's not true.
Yeah, they got a great soap I like to use.
They do have some soap for men.
They do got some good stuff.
Yeah, they got some good stuff in there. It's a little overpowering for my senses these days, but it's good. But this woman was a manager, right? And she was fired over the company's pronoun policy. And apparently they got a new employee, and I guess she looked at this individual, looked at this person, and decided that because of religious beliefs, she didn't want to refer to this person the way this person wanted to be referred to, right? I guess she looked at him and thought, okay, this is biologically a male. And I guess perhaps this transgender individual, this transgender citizen wanted maybe female pronouns, or maybe it was them, they, something like that. And she decided, I ain't doing that. And she was fired. She says that it was against her religious values. What do you think about this? Do you guys use personal pronouns like on your social media or anything like that? What do you think?
I can tell you that I have somebody. Let's just put it this way. My son goes to college, and he has some friends there that, you know, they either go by they, or they go by some would appear to me to be her, goes by him, blah, blah, a couple of these things. And, you know, the way I handle that is, on the one hand, I don't feel comfortable using that, but at the same time, I don't want to be judgmental or to these people, to somebody like that. So I just try to use the first name. That's that simple.
Yep. That's exactly what I do. I stay out of the pronoun game. I try to address people by the name that they want to be called by, whatever that is. So and mainly is I stay out of it because you just don't know. Like, you can't assume that any person that you walk up to these days what pronouns they go by, unless they tell you, or they'll indicate it sometimes on their electronic medium. So I generally, just to stay out of that game and avoid offending or confusion, I just call people by their first names, and I usually keep it there. What I would say in this instance is, look, I think outside of the workplace, people are entitled to do what they do. I mean, you can think that it's not politically correct, rude, or whatever, or woke if you do it. But I think whatever people decide to do in their personal lives, they should be allowed to do. So if I see you on the street and you call me by my personal pronouns or whatever, and that goes against my religious beliefs or whatever my personal beliefs are, it might be rude, but you can't force me to address you in a way that I'm not comfortable with. That's in the personal. I think that's in the personal space. Now, when you're in the workplace, or you're in different areas where they have policies, you have to abide by the policies of where you work. And if you don't want to abide by those policies, then you don't need to work there. So if that conflicts with some personal belief or thing that you have, because in the workplace, you have to be able to have non-hostile work environments, teamwork, camaraderie, all of those things that go into the production and healthy work environment. So I think, corporations can draw the lines of the rules that they have there. And if you don't want to follow them, find you another job. But certainly I think people in their personal lives, whether you agree with it or not, have the right to say, this is what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do, just as people have the right to determine who they want to be and how they want to think about themselves. So I think
This was on the job though. So this was a
Yeah,
job.
that's what I'm saying. On the job, you got to go along with what the policy is. If that's the
Right.
policy of your workplace, for them to try to create, safe, healthy environments, then you got to go along with that. And if you don't want to adhere to that policy, just like any other policy that's in your employee handbook, then you need to work someplace else or prepared to be asked to move on. I mean, it's that simple to me.
There's a recent Supreme Court case. You guys can have to remind me. It was one of these religious. Oh, I know. The court, the 6 majority people. They said that if a parent, if a topic of transgender or LBG, whatever the heck you call it, comes up, you have a right to withdraw your kid from school. There's been a lot of these kind of, or from that class, or that specific class, or that that day. Okay. And it's always based on
How evil is that?
Well, let me just finish. It's always based on, quote, Christian grounds. Like, this offends me because I am a Christian and the Bible speaks out against homosexuality. But I wonder, and I'm speaking now from a religious or a Christian or biblical standpoint, I wonder what message that sends out to the people there who don't share those beliefs. Because we're supposed to share. If you're a Christ follower, you're supposed to share about and encourage people to look into Jesus. Okay. And if you're always kind of saying, I'm not going to sit through, my kid's not going to sit through this class that he mentions this, what kind of image is that? What impression are you giving? I don't think it's a very good impression. I think it's insensitive and judgmental. And I don't think it honors God. That's my view about these things.
Well, what I said was evil. No, go ahead, Tarris. You go right ahead, bro.
I was going to say about Bath and Body Works, their plugins, when you get them on 3-for-1, you can usually get a year's worth supply in one outing. Like the plugins for your walls are amazing. Bath and Body Works, someone in the chat said Kim Davis won her suit. She actually lost her suit in Kentucky and had to do jail time for refusing to give same-sex marriages. I mean, she was a devout Christian, and that was her stance on it. Something just to think about, because when people ask me my programs, I just say, I'm him. But whenever I'm talking to people I ask them, what do you want me to call you? I look them in their eyes. And I'm like, what do you want me to call you? And then I respect that. I don't assume. I don't I'm going to do this. I'm going to call him that. I'm like, what would you like for me to call you? I humanize the situation. And the last part that I want to talk about is the Latter-day Saints, the Mormons. They're the Mormons, correct?
Yeah.
So one time last week, one knocked on my door and asked me if I wanted to go to church with them. And I wouldn't call myself a Christian. I'm more like, I'm a devout believer and I have a personal relationship with the Most High. And he asked me if I want to go to church at Jesus Christ Latter-day. I said, you want me to go to a church where Phil just was talking about imagery? You guys still celebrate a white Jesus. I don't particularly subscribe to white Jesus. So you want me to go and sit up underneath a church to where you subscribe to white Jesus and I don't subscribe to white Jesus. So there's different imageries where it comes to this type of thing. So her standing on her beliefs, she's standing on something, in my opinion, is wrong and strong. She's strong on it, but she's wrong. If she wants to, and I think that she maybe, if that's a policy of Bath and Body Work, maybe she should have asked the lady what she wanted to be called her by that name, and made it a non-hostile work environment so the person can do their job, that person can do their job, and they can move on. Because I do feel like sometimes that that faith, when they knocking on your door, they try to push their religion on you. And I'm like, hey, easy, because we might all believe in a higher power, might believe in Jesus, but the perception of how they imagery of white Jesus to be the Lord and Savior, when I don't believe that way, is kind of invasive.
Look, the guy was Jewish. We all know that. That's all we need to know.
That's all you need to know, Phil.
All right. Okay.
That's all you need to know. Whenever white supremacy has been all over.
Come on.
Okay, cool. I thought you were serious. I was about to like.
I'm teasing.
Hey, listen. I don't know what's, and I hate to use words like this, but I'm gonna go ahead and use it. So just please excuse me in this instance. But I don't know what is stupider. Losing your job because you don't want to wear a mask or get a COVID vaccine. I seen all these people that lost their job. I just thought it was the most ridiculous thing ever. Or losing your job because you don't want to call somebody, another grown person, what they're asking to be called. You know, I think that's stupider. Like losing your job over something like this is stupider. Like the COVID thing on some level, I can understand, especially with black people. Maybe there's a justifiable history. I get that. Yeah, this is stupider because you don't want to respect another person, but you want Jesus or whoever you worship to respect and get over all of your faults, all the things you do wrong, all your sins, all your lies, all your dirt, but you want to stand on not calling another human being what they want to be called. I don't want to go to that heaven where those people are going because it's going to be boring. It's going to be like apartheid. I don't want to go to that heaven. Okay, I want to go to I want to go with Tupac and Biggie and I want to go to that heaven because their God is just it's not something I ever want to live under. It's just basic human decency and respect. You know, I don't care what you want to be called. If you good people, you good people. You transgender, you transgender. You want me to use she, but I look at you and I can tell that biologically you were born a he, then I'm gonna call you she. And I've been in situations where I've seen like older people in a workplace situation deal with somebody. It was a female that was kind of living like a male, but I could hear some of the interaction. It always seemed like they were trying to like remind them that they're a girl. How you doing, girl? And I'm like, that is disrespectful. Let people be who they want to be. They're not harming you. They're not transgender people don't care about non-transgender people in as much as we keep infringing upon their rights. This is just, there's a real distorted view of God and what it means to be a Christian out there, and it's very sad. It's very, very sad.
Well, let me just say this from a faith perspective, and I think that there's a very real acknowledgement. And this is one of the things that Christians battle with all the time, and this is biblical. Look, there's the reality that there are things that are of God and things that are not of God, and as Christians, you don't just sort of go along with the culture because it's what's popular, right? Like the Bible is replete with stories of people who were followers of God who found themselves in situations in places like Babylon and other things where the culture called for certain things that went against their belief in what God had told them to do. And so what I would say to people who have those sorts of religious beliefs and convictions is that it's easy to say, oh, well, why don't they just go along with the culture? But if you believe that the culture doesn't match up with what you believe God says or what God wants you to do, then you have an obligation as a Christian not to embrace that, but to embrace the things of God. So I think, and again, this is why I started out by saying people can believe whatever they want. And this goes into religion. You can't force somebody to do something that they don't want to do, even if you think it's okay. I can say that somebody has the right that if they feel that if they were a man and they feel like they were born as a woman or biologically they were born as a woman and that's how they want to be referred to and dealt with, they have that right to want to be that. But if somebody else in a non-public space says, I don't want to accept that because of my religion, they also have the freedom in this country to say,
can I push
no,
back
on
that?
Let me finish my point.
Don't.
Let me say they have the freedom to say, I'm not going to call you that. Now you don't have. Now here's the thing. Here's the transaction. Outside of public spaces, you don't have to deal with me, right? This is where I'm saying where the public space conversation is different. I don't have to like you. I don't have to get along with you. There's nothing in the Constitution. There's nothing in civil discourse that says I have to deal with you like how you live or whatever or acknowledge it, right? If you don't eat healthy and I eat healthy, I don't have to rock with you, right? I don't have to accept the supersized meal. So that is the great freedom that we have in this country. It sucks sometimes, particularly when people have attitude that we think ought to be the norm. But that is what America is, and that is what freedom of religion affords. Now,
Kevin,
where it crosses, let me finish. This is the last point, then I'll let you have it. Where that shifts is when you get into the public space, where you're serving the public or dealing with the public in a business environment. That goes out of the window because there you get into areas of discrimination where we have laws and things of that nature and policies sometimes in your workplace that said these are things that you have to do. So even if I disagree with it, I got to straighten up and I got to do it, or I got to find somewhere else to eat, do business, or work if I'm going to.
Can I push back on this a little bit?
I blame the churches. That's what I blame.
Can I say something about that?
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend, I haven't seen him in a long time. He was the founding pastor of the Vineyard Church here, which is one of the biggest churches in the area, Steve Sjogren. He had an expression, and he said, don't major in the minors. Okay? Meaning that, okay, if someone is asking you to steal something, to lie, to do something like that that goes against your faith. I mean, I have been in that situation. Some of you probably have too. Most of you have too. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. But whether we call somebody him or her, or for example, another thing people argue about, Darwinism versus creationism, I'm not going to argue about that. I couldn't care less. To me, that's a minor. I want people, for me, to know God, know Jesus. And I don't think it's helpful to get into these things about these kind of issues, which frankly, I consider to be minor.
Look, here's the thing that I would say about it is, look, we're all called to love each other. And there's a difference between judging somebody, trying to condemn somebody because of an action or a lifestyle, and not extending love. Extending love to you doesn't mean that I have to condone things that I don't agree with, right? Like, that's not a part of the love. I can still love you,
Like
and
calling me what I want to be called. That's
yes,
not love.
yes, I absolutely can.
That's basic respect, Kevin.
Can.
And you know what the
I
problem
absolutely
is? I blame the churches, because you got these irresponsible preachers out there that are teaching this kind of hate and bigotry in their sermons, and they're putting it in the heads of their parishioners, and then these parishioners are going out there acting like they're kind of God's agent. That's exactly, it's irresponsible.
I can't tell you the last time I heard a sermon. In fact, most of the churches and places that I go to nowadays, they stay away from. Now, I can't speak to everybody else's church.
Yeah, but you know about the new IRS
a lot of churches
ruling,
don't.
Right?
A lot of pastors don't even preach on this stuff from the pulpit.
You know about the new
anymore.
IRS ruling, right? Trump's IRS guy, about a week ago, ruled that churches can now tell people who to vote. They can support candidates. Which I'm sure is Trump playing to his base. But those rules have changed, just so everybody knows.
Yeah, it's irresponsible preachers, and you're right about that, and that's worthy of a conversation. I mean, here we go. This is what people voted for. But no, it's irresponsible preachers, irresponsible churches getting up there spreading bigotry and hate, and telling people that because people are different, that somehow you're not one of God's children. Meanwhile,
I can't ever recall hearing that.
Meanwhile, ain't nobody out there talk directly to God. Nobody's come back from heaven with nothing real and tangible. It's all people with their own interpretation of the Bible. And it's just basic, just evil and bigotry dressed up like that's my religious views. No, it's just bigotry, because what you should be worried about is your own self. What you should be worried, that is the number. If you love God, fix you. But most people can never do that, so they start projecting that on other folks, and it makes them feel good to talk about the next man because they're evil and their sin is worse than my sin. I just sin a little bit, man. It's nonsense. It's nonsense.
Yeah,
you're in the workplace. Respect people.
Jesus talked about it.
Give
Jesus
everybody the
same
respect. The same way you want somebody to see. My thing about this is you never hear transgender people. You don't hear a lot about this. Maybe this happens, but transgender people can respect us. If they say, if you tell transgender people your name is whatever your name is, they respect it. I've met people who had like nicknames. I never knew their real name. Right? I used to know a guy named Big Daddy. He was like a well-known local talk radio caller. Right? I never knew his real name. I respected that. I didn't get in my feelings like, oh, I'm not going to call another man Big Daddy. Like, who thinks like that? But maybe some people did. So it's just about basic religiosity. Ain't got nothing to do with it. It's just basic respect. And she's hiding behind her own bigotry and trying to use religion as a shield. That's what I personally think. That's all it is, straight up. Because the most godly people mind their own business. They mind their own business because they know that God, your work on this planet is not the world. It's you first. Fix you first. You get right. Then you can go out there and start talking about other people, right?
Well, when you say mind their own business, I understand that in terms of not judging people. They see some person who's gay and Yeah, I get
That's
that,
what I'm talking about.
but when you say mind your own business,
That's the context in which I mean it.
all right, okay, because
Yeah,
I
that's the
believe,
context
and
where I
I'm
mean it.
not as good necessarily good at this, but I do believe, we have an obligation if we see somebody hurting in need, whether it's a
Yeah,
friend or something,
absolutely.
to okay, all
But
right,
also,
I
do we
don't
have
think
an obligation as children of God, and we're all children of God, to realize that I am no better. I'm not any better than any man sitting on death row. I'm not any better than anybody sitting in the mansion. We are all the same. It don't matter what I've done or not done. You are God's child. I'll let God judge you. Like if you
Sure.
really believe in judgment day, God will judge you. That's good enough for me. I'm gonna treat you nice. You treat me
So
nice.
so
We
here's
keep it
what
moving.
here's what I would say, Nathan. Here's what I would say on that. And this is the problem that religion has. And I think it's a problem that people have in general. And you use the word that people don't like to be preached to, particularly when you're preaching to them something that they don't want to hear. Look, the reality is that Jesus commanded, if you believe in Jesus, if you don't believe in Jesus, then what I'm about to say don't apply to you. But Jesus essentially said, you know, go preach my gospel. In other words, and make disciples of people. So go out and tell the world what I taught you and what I said.
Right.
And so sometimes when you tell people what Jesus said, when you tell them that truth, if it don't fit with something that they like, that's what they have a problem with.
I'm okay with that though.
So when you wait a
But
minute,
there's a
let me finish.
qualifier though.
Let me finish. So this is what I always say when I preach sermons. Don't get mad at me. Get mad at Jesus. Get mad at God, because I'm only telling you what I'm reading in the Bible, which is in our faith and our denomination, we believe is the word of God and what is said. So if I'm telling you what the words that are coming out of Jesus's mouth are, but you want to get mad at me, you're not really mad at me. You're mad because you don't want to accept the truth that I've been called to deliver. And I'm not even talking about transgender. So don't even mistake that. I'm just talking about in general that people have a hard time accepting the word of God because it don't a lot of time match up with their lifestyle. And they feel like if you say that, you're judging them. The job of a preacher is to preach the word of God without quarter straight with no chaser. And sometimes that truth is hard, and sometimes it don't match up with your life.
Well, Kevin,
you know what I'm saying? And that's a hard pill for people to swallow. You know how I know? Because it's hard for me to swallow sometimes.
But
when
sometimes
I have
it
to look
does.
at myself, as you said, and see how the life that I'm living sometimes doesn't match up with what God would have me do. And that's a hard pill to swallow. And it's even harder when somebody that ain't you is telling you about it.
What about when it does work, though, Kevin? You're talking about when it doesn't, but when it does work, whenever you go and you preach your sermon and somebody walks up to you afterwards, it's like, you were talking to me today. Because
absolutely, it happens all the time.
Because I'm a willing participant and I'm a willing soul to listen to what you were saying. They didn't come in there resistant, and those things happen as well. And what we're talking about, like the latter day, I don't think we got off topic, but the people in the latter day saints, I don't think that they're preaching the John Smith's version. That's why I had that's the only way I chimed in about that. They're not speaking Christianity, they're speaking John Smith's version, that when he saw his version of things, and he came and he preached all this hate about how black people were inferior. Mormons don't get no love from me when it comes to that kind of stuff. I love them when they come to my door and they try to talk to me about Jesus Christ. I told the dude, I respect that you're taking this time out of your life and you're pilgrimaging and you're walking and you're trying to bring people closer to Jesus. But I told him this. I said, the birth rate of white people ain't birth rate high enough. They're 2-point-some%. So whenever they're a minority, in about 2040, when the white people are the minority in the United States of America, are you still going to be preaching white Jesus to people who you're the minority to? Are you still going to be preaching that?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense to me.
They absolutely will be. But you know what? I had a point, but you was on the road there, Tarris, and I kind of got caught up in it and kind of lost it, which is probably good anyway. We could just move on. It's probably good anyway. I'll just roll with the punches here.
I got one more point to make for what it's worth, because I thought of when Tarris was speaking. I don't know anything about this white Jesus. I don't know what you're referring to. I don't know anything about this white Jesus thing. I know they have magic underwear, and they used to be able to have bunch of wives. I don't know, but I will tell you some. And I don't believe in the Mormon thing. I believe I hate to use the word cult, but I think it's kind of like that. Okay. And might offend some people. But I heard a very interesting commentary. It goes back to 2016 by Bill Maher, who's totally, if you know Bill Maher, he's totally anti-religion. He's against all of it. Okay. But he made the point that he was giving a talk on how hypocritical evangelicals are, guys like me who were so angry about Lewinsky and Bill Clinton always preaching family values, and yet they support a guy like Donald Trump, who's, as he put it, has violated every commandment. And he said something though. He said, the only people the people I respect are the Mormons, because apparently in terms of their voting and things like that, they were very adamant against what Trump was because of his character, because it goes against what they believe. And I was impressed with that. So I'll give them some credit.
Yeah, I would just say this: to what you just said, Phil. We're all hypocrites. Look, that's the first thing, and one thing that I agree with what Nathan said is we all have enough work that we need to be doing on ourselves. That we need to spend less time worrying about what other people are doing and focusing on ourselves and trying to, as best we can, to love each other and let God sort it out. I agree with what Nathan said. Sometimes we get too caught up. And Phil, I think you said this too, in some of the minor details, just keeping the main thing about the main thing, trying to love each other, show as much respect as we can, and while staying true to what it is that we believe in. And I think that's the most that you can ask, that you can ask from people, and to just acknowledge, I try to stay away from these religious political conversations because, when you get right down to it, politics. Well, if you're being true to your religious conviction, then you wouldn't be down with either one of these parties. I mean, I'm gonna just put it to you like that. If you're gonna be 100, if you're gonna keep it 100 and try to say that you are sticking straight to the script, the biblical script, both parties got problems that don't match up with what God says. Whether you want to believe that to be abortion on the liberal side, whether you want to believe that to be some of the mistreatment of the poor and aliens
dictatorship on the right side.
Yeah, that you see on the right side. So it's like both parties are replete with, issues that if you're serious about your spiritual walk, you're going to find yourself having to compromise in some way, shape, or form to support somebody. So while I've said it and I've been judgmental of Christians who support Donald Trump, look, I mean, it's different stuff, but it's still stuff that challenges you, whether it's Bill Clinton, and his infidelity with Monica Lewinsky or whatever else you want to pull up. There's always something that's going to challenge your spiritual walk and your beliefs if you lead with your politics. And I think that is, where preachers for a long time, maybe not as much so of late, somewhat had a little bit of the moral majority where King could argue against, war and the mistreatment of Black people and kind of have a moral ground that went beyond, sort of the politics. You see that a little bit less now,
I think you're wrong about that, though. I mean, and I hate to slow us up. I want to go on, but you made a point about, the outrage about abortion on the left and that being some kind of against people's religious view. And I think people really misunderstand, the left's viewpoint. It's not necessarily that you are pro people having abortions. People are old enough to remember what was going on before it was legal. Women were doing it themselves. And so liberals believe there should be a more civilized way and a healthier way for women to end pregnancies rather than doing it with a coat hanger in a hotel. So let's get that straight. And when it comes to abortion, that is the most moral situation. I guess the most moral situation would never have sex at all until you get married, right? So that's right,
but that ain't happening. I mean,
but that's not happening. So right,
yeah, but that's not happening.
First of all, married people have abortions. A lot of
married people have abortions. Thank you, Phil. I was just about to say that. Exactly.
It's true because they're over. They don't feel they can raise the child. They don't feel they can't handle it. So there are a lot of married.
And so there, when you get into that becomes a moral question, right? Which is what we talk about when we get into spirituality: is not being able to support a kid, morally a good enough reason to end a potential life, right? Like
In today's world,
that
yeah.
well,
Whenever the
but again,
Bible was
if I'm gonna come from at it from a spiritual perspective, then that leaves no room for God to come in and do anything in your life that might change your circumstance tomorrow that could make it possible for you to support and deal with that kid. You're
right,
making a decision in a moment,
right.
not leaving room for the infinite power and wisdom to God to say, you have this child, I might change your situation. I see what it looks like now. That's the essence of faith. The essence
Right.
of faith is not going off of what you see now, but trusting in God to be able to make a way. And
Yeah,
so
you
if
might.
I'm making a decision now because I'm thinking I can't afford this, and that's a reason to end a life, that's a moral question, right?
Yeah, I
Not a
know. Yeah,
political question. That's a moral question.
yeah, it depends on how you look. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But I just wanted to make that point. Like, so people, I think, really mistake, the so-called less position. It's not necessarily that you want to see women going out there getting abortions. There's plenty of people that voted for a woman's right to choose who are against it. We are just intelligent to understand that if people are gonna do it, let's make it safer. Just like with cannabis sales, I'd much rather go to a store like I can in Ohio now and just in a very civilized way go get me a whatever from there rather than doing it in a back alley on Green Street on the west side. I mean, if people are going to do it, let's make it safe. That's what the rationale is. But
Sure.
I understand that people have their
I think an
religion.
even better
I
argument
get it.
than that, Nathan, is this. Here's what my argument is sometimes on these is we live in a democracy, not a theocracy, right? Like a lot of these conversations that
You
we
got
had.
about 2 years for that. Your theocracy police state is incoming in about 2 years. If the
Yeah,
Democrats lose, you're in a
but
theocracy.
but theoretically, that's what we live in. We live in a democracy. In other words, everybody doesn't subscribe to a religion or the moralities that go along with that religion. So in a country like America, I would venture to say that our laws shouldn't be solely based on religious convictions, right? In a country where you're subjecting a certain percentage of the people who don't share those beliefs or that morality to your spiritual morality. I would argue that that's a stronger case for the Democrats in saying that, hey, look, everybody don't believe in God. Everybody don't believe in Jesus. Everybody believes in something different, right? And so because we have so many of these different beliefs, we should not base our policies in this country on these things. We should base them on, and a lot of people make this argument, base it on the science, right? The main argument about abortion is a lot of people believe life begins at conception. The scientists in the medicine will say, well, that's not necessarily true. That's a spiritual or biblical interpretation that like life doesn't begin until a certain point, right? Like that's kind of the argument on abortion, which I think for a country that is not a theocracy is a sound argument, right? You got to go off of the medicine and the science as much as you can, right? But if I'm leaning on my spiritual morality, then that's where
you lean out of your.
politics makes it difficult for me to stand.
But this is where I say you mind your own business. You worry about yourself. If you don't want to have an abortion and you don't believe in it, I respect that. I really do. You shouldn't have one. But you shouldn't tell somebody else what their circumstances are because, like you said, there could be a couple out there that's like, man, we want to have a kid, but it's so expensive. So they decide to have an abortion. And like you said, they don't allow whatever blessings that God could have brought into their life. Like, let's say they kept the kid and maybe one of them gets a big time government job and you're on the job 6 months and then Doge and Donald Trump and evil Republicans cut your job. Now you're in Trump's America about to get on unemployment benefits and a baby coming in. So that's the reason why we got to allow people to make their own choices because we live in an ungodly world where not Republicans, but politicians, Democrats and Republicans aren't really always doing what's best for us. And unfortunately, that matters when you're family planning. I wish it didn't. I wish it wasn't as expensive and we had more babies and less abortions. That would be great. But we don't live in that world. We live in a world where you might be 9 months pregnant doing DoorDash and nobody's coming to help you. No one's coming to help you. All these conservatives that's going and Christians that's going to convince you to have a baby. When you have that baby, they instantly despise you and call you a welfare queen and take away your Medicaid. So what are you talking about? There's nothing for people to do. There's no hope. There's no way out other than, like you said, don't have sex at all. But you could get married, then have sex, and y'all both lose y'all jobs, and y'all both doing whatever you got to do to get by in the world that we have. And nobody's coming to help you. Not one person.
Yeah, I wasn't laughing at what you were saying, Nathan. If you saw that, I was laughing at T.
Oh,
Nicole.
I didn't even see you, bro. It's all good.
Oh, yeah. T. Nicole said, if life begins at conception, why isn't that day your birthday? Things
Excellent
that
point. Excellent point. Excellent point. Let's move on. So there's something interesting happening something interesting just happening with this local case. And again, this is nothing but heartbreaking all the way around. But now it's been reported that the widow of the fallen Hamilton County Sheriff Deputy, the man that was killed by, Hinton's father, she's now suing over money raised by the killer. People are making a big deal out of the fact that I think they've raised about 10 grand using these online sources for his legal defense and maybe family expenses or whatever. And I read it, and they're saying that basically this must be, this might be illegal. They're trying to snatch the money. He shouldn't have the right to, they're saying, profit off of his crime. Now, me personally, I don't think this is necessarily profiting. I mean, he's got a legal situation, and there's some people that feel a certain way about it. If they want to give money to his family or his lawyers, I mean, you got a right to do that. But it seems like there's an effort to maybe take that ability away in the state of Ohio. I'm kind of looking forward. I can see somebody saying, "Hey, let's put a bill together that says that if you," and this just seems to be against the rights of people who haven't even been tried. This man hasn't been convicted of anything. Despite what we think, he has not been convicted of anything. So maybe post-conviction, I can see that, but pre-conviction, I don't know. How do you feel about this attack on his ability to raise money for his defense?
Hurt people, I believe. I mean, the mother, the widow is hurt. So she's seeing that the perpetrator of the hurt is raising funds. So she's like, I'm going to hurt that person. So that's my hurt people.
Yeah, it's got to be a bitter pill on the deputy family side. I mean, you've lost your loved one in the most horrific way possible, and then here you've got a guy's family who's raising money, not necessarily off that, because I don't think that that's a fair characterization. Maybe like it ain't. I mean, I get that there are some people who are out there who were somewhat celebrating that, and maybe there were some of the people who donated, but it wasn't like the family was out there like promoting, like, oh, hey, look at what he did, give us some money. They're trying to raise money for his legal defense, which I say he has an absolute right to, no matter how horrible what he did was. And he probably will ultimately wind up getting convicted behind it. But he deserves, just as anybody else does, the right to have the best representation that he possibly can. And if people want to donate to that, this is America. He should have a right to be able to raise money for his defense. And that's sickening to say because of what he did, right? I mean, I think that's the thing that you have to be able to separate, is your contempt for what he might have done to what his right should be as a U.S. citizen to be able to mount a defense against himself. So I think this son of Sam law that they're trying to use to be able to snatch this money, I don't know that that's going to apply, because I think that applies to people who have been convicted of crimes. He hasn't been convicted yet. He hasn't even been to trial. So this is not necessarily, I think, and Phil can correct me when he comes back, that this would apply in this situation in terms of raising it for a legal defense. Now, I get you don't want the family, you don't want the family to get rich, right? I'm sure there's probably some of that people are thinking about this too, like, oh, this ain't going to just go to the legal defense, like the family is going to get some of this money and they're going to be spending it, blah, blah, blah. There's probably some of that going on out there in the rumor mill as well. And I get that too. The concern that people have around that too. But I absolutely think that, as deplorable as what he did, he has the right to be able to try to raise money for his defense and defend himself as best that he possibly can. And that's a tough pill, a difficult pill to swallow. I can't say that if I wasn't in Deputy Henderson's family situation, that I wouldn't feel the same way. I would be bitter if I saw somebody who killed my loved one out there raising money. I'd be mad too, and I'd probably be trying to stop it. So I get where they're coming from, but I think the way that the law and everything is set up, that, unfortunately, you got to take the good with the bad, with the freedoms and the things that and the due process that we're allowed in this country. And we would all be thankful for it if we were on the other side of that and we had to use it.
Your thoughts, Tarris? Any other thoughts?
It's hurt people. There's no good thought. There's nothing good to say about this whole situation. It's like they're going to keep coming back and forth and going back and forth with each other. I believe that Hinton deserves every bit of support that he could possibly get, because he hasn't even been to trial yet.
Yeah. My thing is, who had to tell her? Like, why are you telling the widow what the defense is doing? Like, who told her that? How did she find out? Maybe she was online and she saw it. And okay, so is she asking that the site just not deliver the money to the family? Or is she asking that the money goes somewhere else?
Yeah, I think she's, from my understanding from the reporting, is she's suing to get the money. Like,
correct.
She's not just, because if you remember, there was the police unions and everything came out against GoFundMe and some of these other sites that made them take it down. So what she's suing for is the money that they had already raised off of that. So they had raised a certain amount. Like, I think even when they forced them to take it down, like, they couldn't take the money back that had been donated. I think the family still had the right to the money that was raised even after they took it down. And so I think that's what she's suing for. Like, she's trying to sue for damages, saying that the family profited off of, their family member's death and they want that money.
Yeah. It's just very sad. I mean, yeah, Troy, when you said that, I was like, yeah, hurt people, and I get it. I can't say any. It's just so much pain around that whole situation, guys. I mean, on the Hinton side, on the sheriff deputy side, on all the friends and family that knew these people. It's just a sad situation. But to me, the thing to watch in this is the potential for this to impact all Ohioans. So if you can't raise money, let's say you kill a police officer, you can't raise money in your defense before the trial. I think that's very dangerous. I think it's un-American. It's very un-American. I understand the pain, man. I mean, you would almost do anything to reverse this situation, for the people involved. But that's not the way to do it. That would impact all Ohioans, I think, in a negative way. I hope that doesn't happen, but we shall see. You never know. Let me see if Phil is back. I got him backstage. Yeah, Phil is back, so we can bring him back in. Sorry about that, Phil.
It's okay.
Back. Yeah, your thoughts on this situation?
I think it's so tragic. I almost don't want to talk about it. I mean, whether the police are right or wrong, we've argued about that. I mean, it's the death of a young man. It's terrible, and the father, obviously filled with pain and remorse, does something just totally crazy. But I mean, you can still feel some compassion for him, and of course, the family of this police officer. I mean, not just to die. They all kind of. We all know that they kind of put their lives on the line, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, this was not like he was chasing a robber. This is a guy who didn't know this cop, knew nothing, just wanted to, kill him. And the whole thing is just so sad and so tragic. I don't even feel like talking about it. Now, I will tell you that I'm not sure it would be constitutional to prohibit somebody giving money to some fund. And the reason I say that, if you remember, the Supreme Court, I think very questionably, in the famous what I'll think of the name of it. It's the case where they basically said unions, companies, give as much money as you want. They said it was speech, which I don't agree with. But they said that if you give money to a political campaign, that's speech. Well, they've now set that standard. So I think it would be very difficult for a state or municipality to say you can't give money for this.
Well, they say money talks, Phil. So
It talks loud.
Yeah, talks very,
Maybe
very loud.
maybe the court had maybe they had a point with that. Money does tend to talk.
It just goes to really show on some levels. There's a lot that this case tells us, but it just tells you there's a lot of deep seated resentment in communities toward police, and what can we do to kind of bridge that gap? But it's just a bad situation. I hope it gets better. Very, very sad. That's all I got, guys. We're picking up on 3 o'clock. I don't want to keep you any longer. Any last thoughts anybody wants to share before we roll out?
Yeah, there is one thing I did want to bring up, because I do think it's another case of these sad stories, and definitely something that I think we got to get a handle on. I mean, I think we saw another unfortunate incident where a young person lost their lives, not at the hands of the police this weekend, but at the hands of someone who they stole a car from. And it was a 12-year-old victim, and I think there was another teenager who was in the car with the 12-year-old who got, I think, clipped by the individual who shot in there and killed. And I think, this is one of those things where we got to get a handle on this, whether we're talking about the gun violence or these stolen cars, because it's getting to a point. I mean, you could see this coming to a head. I'm not surprised that this is happening. That eventually you were going to have somebody who was going to take matters into their own hands in these stolen car situations, and because I think people are tired of it. I think they're tired of getting their cars stolen. I think they're tired of the damages.
What are the circumstances of this case? You say it was.
So you haven't heard about this? So there was a case. I think it was over the weekend. I can't remember what neighborhood it was in, but a couple of kids stole a car from out in front of the house. The homeowner, or the person, I don't know if he was the homeowner, but I guess the person who was associated with the vehicle and the home that it was taken from chased them down after they stole the car, chased them down in another vehicle and fired into the car, killing one of the young people and injuring the second. And so the guy he was a 31-year-old guy that did the shooting. He was in court, I think, this morning.
31?
Yeah, it's 31-year-old man. Chased down these kids and shot them up.
If you steal my car, you got a car, bro.
You can have it.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying. Like yeah, most rational people kind of think like that, Nathan. But I think like this stuff is getting, with these stolen cars and stuff, is getting so
it's not
pervasive.
The stolen car, though, bro.
Huh?
Kevin,
No,
if a man does
I'm not
something like that,
I'm not justifying it, Nathan. What I'm saying is that things get to a certain point where people get heightened, and then you see crazy stuff like this happen. I'm not excusing it. Yeah. I'm not saying it should have happened. I'm saying it was an eventuality of this rise in car thefts that we see going on, that eventually somebody was going to take matters into their own hands.
We know that because again, that's been happening, and it's unfortunate. But we live in a society that values things over people's lives, and we also live in a society, and it's bigger than the black community or Cincinnati. This is Americana. This is American culture. Hell, this is our U.S. foreign policy. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just so interesting. Like, look at what just happened with Trump in Iran. He didn't talk things out with them. They didn't negotiate it. They didn't do the diplomatic way. They dropped bombs. They use violence. But when it comes to the streets, we get surprised that we do the same things. We don't talk it out. We grab a gun and we use violence. And so this is American as apple pie and baseball violence. It's in us. It's in our music. It's in our culture. It's in all our music. It's in all our movies. It's in all our movies. We grew up on it. John Wayne had a gun. Like, all your favorite heroes had guns, and they used those guns to intimidate people, call them bad guys, to get what they want. So why are we so surprised that people still doing that? I got a problem with you. We don't have a de-escalation society. We got an escalation society. I wish you would. You better not. So yeah, it's always been people like that. It's sad. It's very easy. I can't see myself chasing down, and then I get to the car and there's some babies in there. I don't care who they 14, 15. I'm just going to have to find another way to work. I'm not going to have my car until I get a replacement, but I'm not killing somebody over some vehicle and you're driving away from me. That's somebody's baby. That's somebody's child. Yeah, they did some dumb stuff. I'm mad. I hope you go to jail, but that's somebody's child. But that's how I think. Clearly, this man felt like his car or the insult, the outrage of taking my car was so important that he going to shoot into a vehicle. They could have had a baby in the vehicle. You're going to shoot indiscriminately into a vehicle. We are lost. We are lost. Shame on this man. Now, first, shame on these young boys, because why are you selling people's car? You opened the door for this, like Kevin said. You opened the door for this. But to shoot somebody's baby over a car, maybe he has something in it. Maybe he has something in it that, hey, it was that important. Maybe he's been robbed before, and it's a trauma thing. That happens. People get robbed and then now you traumatized. I ain't gonna never let it happen again. I can see that. It's just a whole lot of pain and trauma that I see. Pain and trauma. It's very sad. Very sad. But it's where we are.
Yeah, I just hope that we can get a handle on it before it gets worse, because like I said, I don't see I see these things as escalatory, right? So for every situation where a guy like that ups the ante, maybe these kids up the ante, and it just gets more and more dangerous for everybody. And so I think that's the type of conversation that we have to have in the community, because I agree with you, Nathan. We are in a very violent society, and like I said, I see into the minds of a lot of folks through letters and things that come in to the Inquirer, and you have a lot of people who are fed up with crime. They're fed up with crime. They want to see these kids and these criminals get the harshest punishment that they can from prosecutors and whatnot. They're fed up to the point where, again, let somebody run up on them, right? Similar to these kids running up on this guy. You're gonna run up on the wrong one eventually. And that is where we are, sort of F around and find out. A lot of people got that attitude in the city right now. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not a surprise that you saw this happen. And it wouldn't be a surprise if you saw it happening more frequently if things continue. And that's the part that concerns me a little bit.
I think the difference for me in this day is throughout history, most of our leaders, political leaders, presidents, whether they lived up to it or not, they generally preached against violence. They generally didn't get up. They generally publicly opposed violence and spoke against it. We're now in a situation where we have a guy in the White House who at his rallies, when somebody would stand up and yell, he'd say, beat the crap out of him, beat him up, and I'll pay your legal fees. Just like that. And then who actually encourages a violent attack on the Capitol, and then pardons all the people committed violence. And so to me, what that's saying, that's coming from on, that's an example. This is coming from on top. Basically, it's saying, hey, violence is okay. If it suits us, if it helps us, violence is okay. And that scares me. That scares me.
Yeah. All truth. Well, thank you so much, guys. I
got something I want to say. It's Black Tech Week here in Cincinnati, and there's something going on. It's backwards, so I'll just read it to you. Black Tech Week's going on here in Cincinnati, and that's tonight at Washington Park. Our sister Splash, she Yinga Bird, she's having a festival with black and brown artists. Over 20 black and brown artists are going to be down there with installations, and there's food trucks and music, and it's going on today at Washington Park. Art, photography, music, film, vendors, car show.
What time, Tarris?
It starts at 6 and it goes till 9 o'clock, and it's tonight, and it's got installations by Naja, the Nubian Woodworking, Black Alchemist, Cincy Selfie, Ron Vintage, and 20 more black and brown artists. It's Cincinnati's biggest outdoor art gallery. And
Have you gone to any Tech Week things so far?
I have not. Today's gonna be my first day. I'm gonna get out and get it.
Okay. I may see you down. I may take my son down there. Yeah, I'm going to Black Tech Week. I'm probably I don't know. I know it's something Wednesday I want to go to. I have to look at the regular schedule. But yeah, always a good time. I'm glad you brought that up. Always a good time. With that, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Have a great rest of your day and your week.
Let me say it's good to be back with you guys. If
I'm very glad to have you back.
Glad to have you back, Phil.
Thank you. Thank you.
And notice they said that, Phil. I stayed quiet on that one.
Hey, you got